Hi guys, welcome on in here to our user group webinar today. My name is Jim. I'll be leading the presentation for the next 20 or so minutes where we're going to be talking about working with the report designer for donation statements in the Church Windows program. Before we go ahead and get started with all of that, quick word about your GoToWebinar control panel you guys should have on your screens there. If you can hear my voice, it's on there somewhere. There's a little red or orange button sort of usually in the upper left-hand corner there that you can use to either minimize or maximize that control panel. Minimizing it is going to give you a little bit more room on your display to kind of see what we're talking about here in our presentation here today. Maximizing that is going to give you access to the functions there. Most importantly, there's a section there for questions. So if something regarding the statement designer, you have a question on that, feel free to go ahead and use that. I will be able to leave the room open for a little bit after I'm done with my presentation, and I'll get through as many of those questions as I can at that point. Let's see. If you have our regional training workbooks, this is from one of the donations workbooks, the D106, and we'll be covering pages 17 through 26 in that D106 book. That'll be the text I'm working from to kind of guide our presentation here today. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get rumbling. The statement designer is something you can use to customize your layouts for your donation statements. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. I'm going to launch donations by clicking on donations from our opening screen. And from here, we can either go to the Reports and Export tab along the top, click the donation statement button that you'll see there, or I can use the shortcut from our opening image map here to get to our donation statement screen. This first one is normally where, this first step one window rather, is normally where you determine whose statements you're going to be generating. We don't care about that for our presentation here today. I'm just going to click next. It'll be anybody who's given here in the 2019 year. That takes us to the step two window. In the top section of the step two window right here next to where it says statement layout, there's a little drop down arrow there that lets you see what formats you have available to you to print your statements out in. The ones that have template listed to it are kind of the ones that are included right out of the can when you first install the Church Windows program. Most commonly used out of these is probably this windowed envelope format right here. Over to the right of that drop-down list is the Statement Designer button right here that you can use to customize any of those formats and save those changes in a statement layout that you would prefer to use. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and click on that Statement Designer button. It takes us to a Report Designer window that shows you the format of the statement that you are printing to. A good tip for working with any of these report designers, specifically here with the donation statement designer, is down in the lower left-hand corner. There's two buttons down here. There's the designer button right here, and there's a preview button right here. So switching back and forth between those two buttons allows you to go from the sort of the build of your report right here. That's the designer button. And if you click on the preview button there, it kind of shows you what your report kind of looks like in general terms without having to save your changes and actually printing a statement out on your screen. So switching back and forth from the designer to the preview is kind of a quickie way to see what the changes are that you're making. Once we're done making any of these changes here, we'll be able to save it, and it will be a report that we'll have available to us the next time we come in here to print our statements. Okay. Over on the right-hand side of our statement, you have your toolbox. And there's a bunch of options here under standard controls and then data controls underneath that. What I am not going to do, because we don't quite have enough time to go through all of these individual things, I'm not going to go through those one at a time and tell you what all of them individually are and do. But you can, at any time when you're on these screens, and really any screen in the Church Windows program, you can call up a help window by pressing the F1 key on your keyboard. So specifically here from the Report Designer, if I press the F1 key on my keyboard, it's going to open up an Internet browser window with our help screens. Now in Internet Explorer, you may see a little thing down here at the bottom about ActiveX controls. And it just went away because I was talking too much about it. Bear with me for a moment. Let me press it again. Come on, computer, you can do it. Okay, you'll see that ActiveX controls. Simply click that allow block content and it will bring you to your help window. So for the donation statement designer, if I scroll down, you'll see the section B here, the standard controls toolbox. Clicking that, it'll show you descriptions of all of those individual toolbox options and kind of what they do. Okay, so more information about the designer can be had just using that F1 key on your keyboard and going into that. Okay, the default control that you'll be in is the pointer control, which allows us to kind of go through here. And the way the pointer is going to work, any of these fields that you already have on your screen, it allows you to left click on it and you can move any of these existing fields someplace else on your report. So this is the giver name and address box. If I want to left justify that box, I can do so by moving that. I'm moving this by holding the left mouse button down on my mouse, and when I let it go, it kind of snaps it to wherever I want to put it. Okay. So that's the pointer. There are several other options on here. I do want to show you the logo or image option. So if you have a church logo that you want to include for your church, that you want to include on your statement, this is a common one that people do. You can grab that logo or image object under standard controls by left clicking on it, holding that left mouse button down and dragging it over into your statement section on the left side. Letting that go will put that box right where you've got your mouse pointed. And what you'll see when you do that is you'll have the options for whatever field you drug over. And it's kind of hard to see, but it's a tiny little button in the upper right-hand corner of that little arrow button right over there. That's where you get at the properties of really any of these boxes that you have selected on your screen. Clicking on that little arrow key brings you to your tasks box. So for an image, you'll see that you can browse to your image, clicking on the little button with the 3 dots over here to the right. So it defaults to taking you right to your pictures folder on your Windows computer. I'm going to go ahead and select, conveniently enough, our little Church Windows logo that we've got sitting in there. And you're going to see that you've got your little Church Windows logo. Now, what I'd like to do is have my little logo over here to the left of my organization information here. When I go to the preview, I want to show you that the information that we have there for organization name and the address does not take up the entire width of my report. It's more information than we have if I switch back over to the designer that we have here in our little boxes. If I were to click on this organization name box, that you can adjust the size of any of these fields if it's giving you more room than you need for the actual data in there. I can hover my mouse over these little box headers that go out to the side of this. If I left click on it, I can make this smaller. I can do the same for my address. Grab that and make it a little bit smaller. I could take my logo, then I could drag it and put it here if I wanted to. I'd like it to be over on the left side of those though. So I can move more than one field at the same time on here by left clicking, holding my left mouse button down, dragging it over multiple fields. It'll all be selected when I let up on my left mouse button. I can drag all of this stuff together kind of over to the side here. Then I can take my image, put it over next to it. I can once again grab all of this stuff here, drag it, and put it next to my image. Okay. If you go back to your preview button there, you can kind of get a preview of the way that's going to look once you're done with it. Okay, I could move it a little bit over if I wanted a little more space. All of these things I can do. Okay. One other thing I did kind of want to point out, you can also, if you're using one of these images, you can also adjust the size of that image by using dragging from one of the boxes and to the side of it there. So that allows you to kind of adjust the size of that image if you wanted to do it in that manner. Okay. All right, so that's the basics of how you'll use these different controls. I was just using the picture as a specific example there. Okay, some of the, and also, by the way, if there are particular fields that you wanted to get rid of that you don't need on your statement, let's say, for example, you don't need to see a total for non-tax deductible giving at the top of your statement. So the default of the windowed envelope shows you a total tax deductible and a total non-tax deductible at the top. Let's say you didn't need to see the total non-tax deductible and you wanted to get rid of that. You can select any field on here by clicking on it. It'll highlight it, and then you can press the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of it. Okay, so that's a way you can get rid of some things that you don't need on your statement. So again, if you go to your little preview button down here in the lower left-hand corner, it takes you back to that view. Boom, you'll see what your statement now looks like with those changes made to it. Cool. All right. So that's sort of the mechanics of how to work with these different fields when you're in a statement designer to kind of get this stuff to look how you want it to be. Some other specific controls that you may need to know. Let's say I select my giver name and address box here. There is a whole bunch of different options that you have up at the top. This big section up here with my big sloppy box I drew around it there. So there's several things that you can do up here. Kind of the thing I would most specifically point out here is you can adjust the font on any field that is selected on your designer. So I could adjust the giver name and address. I could change the font from there. I could change the point size of it as well. If I wanted to make it a little bit bigger or change the font, I can use those controls up at the top. Bold, italic, underlined is available as well. You can change the color of those as well. Okay, so that's some of the controls that you have available at the top of that. A donation statement, the information about the actual giving is divided up into 3 separate types of views that you can see on a statement. And that's what this bit up here at the top, this account summary bit, the detail section, and the quarterly section. So you have controls about which of those sections you want to display on your statement, as well as some more specific controls about those sections. So for show account summary, for example, there's a little checkbox here. That's this bit, that's the detail. So the account summary is this section right here. So if I uncheck that little box, you'll see that gets removed from the statement if I didn't want that account summary section, for example. Checking it will kind of put it back there. If you see a box kind of highlighted in pink like this, it's overlapping another box, and you may need to adjust the size of it so that it's not overlapping another field. So that's what, when a box shows up in pink, you know, it's kind of overlapping something else. And you may need to do some little tweaks so that it's not overlapping another field. Let's take a look at some of the options you have in that account summary section. Oh, just so you know, the account summary section, I'm going to go back to the preview just to give you a little more information about what we're talking about, is this bit here where it shows a specific giving account. Then you've got the amount given for that time period, over, under, and you've got different columns that you have available. The detail section is this bit up here that shows individual gifts and the date of those gifts. And there's a quarterly section that also is going to, I'm not seeing it on here. We'll see. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, it should be there. Let's take a look at the options we have for the account summary first by clicking on this button at the top that says Edit Account Summary. You have the options to control. The first thing you want to do is look at the columns. These are the columns that appear in that account summary. So if you didn't need to see all of the pledging stuff, let's say, for example, you're not a pledging church. You don't need to see the over, under, and the amount pledged. You don't need to see that, for example. You can select any column you don't wish to see in that section. Click on the little arrow pointing to the left and it'll get rid of it. Just as examples. There's a series of different combinations of this you can get to, but if I were to do that, I can adjust what columns appear. Here under appearance, this is just sort of fonts and colors and things you can do with the way that grid displays. I'm not going to cover too much about this, but there's like little tweaks you can do with that appearance. Thank you, Windows 10. And then once you've got your changes made here, you click OK to save that change. Again, if you go over to the preview button, you'll see that those pledge columns are no longer here for our detail section. Okay. So quickly, we're kind of running a little short on time. Let's take a look at the options you can have for the detail section. I'll click on my Edit Detail Section button here at the top. The layout starts in the upper left-hand corner and goes down in a column, and then it starts at the top of the second column and goes down from there. If you want the giving to go across, left to right, you can change that there. You can also have it only appear in a single column by unchecking this box here. The specific information that is available in those columns, if you don't need to see check numbers or line item comments, you can get rid of those here on the Columns tab. The Fonts tab is the next one where you can adjust the fonts in that detail section if you wanted to do that there. So that's the detail section there. The quarterly section, which we'll take a look at it on the actual statement when we're done working with it here in a moment. It shows a total given by month, and then it gives you subtotals for quarters or for the year to date. So you can show those subtotals by checking or unchecking these here. You can adjust what columns appear, pledged giving, non-pledged giving, and total. We'll take a look again at what this looks like in just a moment, but you can adjust the way that view goes from here. I am going to go ahead and save this new statement report, And I can do that by clicking on the Save As button in the upper left-hand corner. So when I click Save As, that's the default name of this when I started working on this, the template for windowed envelope. But I'm going to call this format the webinar statement. That's the statement we did in our webinar here today. So I'm going to save it as the webinar statement. I will click OK. It saves this format that we worked on here today. Then I can exit out of my report designer. Now you'll see next to where it says statement layout up here in the upper left-hand corner, there's my webinar statement that I just saved. So then I'm going to print Chris Day's statement by putting a little check mark next to his name. It's going to be Chris Day's statement in that webinar statement format. So when I click on print/email statements in the lower right-hand corner, it'll display our new format that we just created. There's our little image that we put in there. You'll see that our account summary section doesn't include those pledge columns that I got rid of. And then this down here at the bottom, this is what the quarterly statement looks like. So there's our column for pledged, our column for non-pledged, our total column. You could get rid of these columns and only show totals. You could show, you don't need to show these quarterly subtotals if you don't want to. So that's what I've got to show you here today. In summary, because this can be a very large topic, what we've got here with our statement designer is the ability to customize your donation statements. It's very flexible. You can really change, move all of these fields around, display what you want to display on your statement. Once you have a format that you like, once you've worked through this with the tools that we described here today, you save that statement. Now it's going to be available as a layout that you can use into the future. We never have to look at that window again once we get a like. We can just use that for our statements from there going forward. And that, folks, is what I have to show you guys today.